Hello and welcome to Start the Beat with Sykes. My name is Sykes and this is my podcast. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone who checked out the last episode. If you're one of those people, I hope you enjoyed the conversation and thanks so much for coming back. But for those of you out there who are new to the show, welcome. Feel free to make yourselves at home. And as always, there's beer and soda in the fridge. Cheers, my friend.
Back at you, man. Cheers.
How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm all right. You know, all things considered, just trying to get all of these knobs and beeps and boops and video things to work. Just trying my best. For those of you out there that do not know my guest, I am sitting here today with the one and only Tim Vitullo. Make some noise for the internet. For those of you that don't know Tim, you are a singer and songwriter living in our good old city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Why don't you tell the people a little bit about your backstory and what it is exactly that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I'm a singer-songwriter, guitar player, live in the greatest city in the world, Pittsburgh, PA. Recently have been focusing on my solo project, Tim Vitullo Band. After spending a lot of time kind of playing in bar bands and cover bands and being a guitarist for hire, probably about 5-6 years ago, kind of bit the bug and finally said, hey, it's time to give this a try, start writing my own songs and singing them and doing my own thing, and haven't looked back since.
Yeah, dude, it's really scary, I think, whenever you decide to take the jump from, playing in a band and being with other people to really, doing something that is your own thing and then also putting your name on it. That's like a bold move, but a classic move. Many singer-songwriters have done that over the years. And I'm really curious about just kind of the starting, the groundwork that made Tim Vitullo. Yeah, what was some of the stuff growing up that, blew your brain open and made you think wow, music is cool?
So it was really funny. I started when I was really young, taking piano lessons and played in the school band and played different instruments with that. And, I was never a very athletic person. So, sports never really took up a lot of my time. And as my friends kind of got more into sports, I definitely was always feeling a little bit left behind, just because it wasn't something I ever excelled at. And I didn't really have the interest to spend enough time to kind of catch up to everybody and get there. But I found that I kind of had a natural interest and aptitude for music. It kind of made sense to me. I did all those things, but didn't really listen to music all that closely or actively until I got to, middle school, high school age. And that first kid you knew got a guitar. And that was the coolest thing that happened all summer.
Sure.
Oh, that guy's got a guitar and he played a song on it. It was just such a small thing, but it became cool and just kind of piqued my interest. And I really loved playing the piano. I'd loved doing the band thing and found a lot of like-minded people there and friends. But picking up the guitar, it just made sense to me in a way that other instruments didn't. It's very funny. I've given lessons a couple times throughout my career, and I'll be the first to admit I'm not very good with beginners because to me so many things with guitar are just well, of course it's that way. It just seems so obvious.
Sure.
That, yeah, of course that's how it works. So it's really hard for me to kind of break that down. But so I got a guitar and my parents were very quick to say, because I was around that age. It was Blink-182 and Green Day and all those kind of pop punk bands were big. My parents hated that music. They still do hate that music. So they made a rule in the house that you can play as loud as you like, as long as you play stuff we like. Which was that was a dangerous offer. They wrote that blank check. And I took that thing to the bank and cashed it. And I remember the first thing, I had a good friend growing up. He played drums, and we were going to kind of be a band of sorts. And his dad, had played a little bit of guitar, growing up, just kind of had picked it up, didn't really play out anywhere or anything like that. And he put on a Black Sabbath record for us when I was 13 or 14. And that was like, whoa,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
like that's so different from anything I've heard musically before. And the guitar was just like so muscular, and there was so much character, and it was so unique, and it was such a voice. It was like a voice that I had heard, that it was, there was something inside of me that I wanted to express and wanted to say, and wanted to make a racket that kind of expressed how I felt about the world and everything. That was like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And that kind of started me down that rabbit hole of, classic rock guitar players. So I was like a parlor trick for like my parents' parties for the longest time, because they got a huge kick out of, all these like 50 some things, got a kick out of like, 13, 14-year-old kid plays like Eric Clapton and Van Halen and, all these bands that they grew up, that those records came out when they were my age or a little bit older. So that was kind of the first thing that really turned me on, and I found to be really inspiring to me. And then it led to kind of getting gigs when I was really young, playing in classic rock bands.
Okay. Okay. So that's cool. I was curious. So Pittsburgh, did you grow up here?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So that makes sense in terms of all the people doing sports and not a lot of people doing music,
Yeah.
City of champions, bruh. But, I think that's really funny with your family and the way that they were like, oh, you can play music, but it needs to be stuff that we like. Because for a minute, I was like going to ask, like, I was kind of curious, like, what is it that your family likes? But if it was still like classic rock and all that gnarly stuff, and they were just annoyed by pop punk, I find that like hysterical. Like, it's just so funny.
Well, see, it's really funny now. The tables have turned a little bit, because like whenever I got into college, I got really into jazz music, and that was kind of the natural progression of like, I started out with like your Black Sabbath, your AC/DCs, your Led Zeppelin, all those kind of like blues based kind of 70s rock bands, and then started getting into like the Grateful Dead and things like that. And that was kind of just the natural progression of, hey, I want to, instead of, everything I play kind of being blues influenced, I want a little more like Purple in there.
Sure.
I want different colors to play with. So my parents loved like Kenny G and smooth jazz. And that was always like, like around the house, like, oh, we're having dinner, I'll put on like David Sanborn or something. And those guys are all great players. Like, don't take it the wrong way. But now I like scold them, and I'm like, please, like, if we're going to listen to jazz, like, let's listen to real jazz, please. Like, not, I jokingly call it music on the eights. It's like that, like, Muzak that they play on like the Weather Channel. So I'm like, oh, music on the eights again. Really, guys?
That's so funny. So with, I was curious about this. So do you think your parents, in hindsight, did you a favor by pushing you away from the pop punk stuff? Because there are still people our age and older, like Blink-182 is still a band, for better or worse. And I can't imagine like how complicated it must be. I don't know, like getting older and continuing to make music like that. Like, I'm really torn when I have this thought, because I feel like, anybody should be able to play whatever music they want. And if you're, in your mid 40s and you still like pop punk, like, who am I to say that that's like wrong? It just feels so like undeniably adolescent to me.
Yeah.
So I'm like always I'm like always teetering this line, like, should I just shut up? That's probably the answer. Like, I should just shut up and let people be happy, I'm guessing.
It's such a, to answer your original question, yes, absolutely. Because it just opened me up to so many different things. And that's one thing I give my parents a lot of credit for is, they're not musos. They're not like these people who, this is good music and this is bad music. Like they like what they like. And I think that's been really helpful for me as a musician and as a songwriter, as kind of a sounding board. Like it's awesome. My parents still come to a lot of my shows. And love, coming to check out the band. And I've been really thankful they've liked almost all the bands I've been a part of, the music that we play. And they always kind of preface comments like, well, I don't know anything about music, but this is what I think. And I'm like, no, like you're the perfect person. Like you have no attachment. There's no prejudice going into it. So just to get all those different things, to listen to, you know, classic rock records, to listen to smooth jazz, to listen to disco, to listen to 60s and 50s like doo-wop and AM radio, and all these different things. Definitely, it kind of brought me into the world of everything has value. There's value to all kinds of music. It's just what mood are you in? What do you personally like? And there's nothing wrong with liking what you like. Just be open-minded to try it all and look for the good in it, not just write it off because it's not, technically impressive, or because it wasn't made before the year 1983 or something. Crazy.
Sure. I think the most important thing with music is understanding that, like, this invokes a feeling in somebody. Like, that's like a music, it's a communication between you and the listener, right? And everybody like kind of has their own experiences when it comes to music, and like something that makes you feel like, wow, like I've never heard anything like this before. Like the first time you heard Black Sabbath and that feeling that you got, right? There's going to be somebody that had that feeling the first time they listened to Blink-182. And like, you can't take that away from them because it's not, fucking whatever God damn it. Why? Tony Iommi. I was like blanking. I was like, how come I'm not remembering this band's name right now? Oh my God. But just because, it's Mark Hoppus and not Tony Iommi, or what's the other guy? Tom DeLonge. Yeah.
And it's totally fine. I think that's the other thing too, that like in life, I think this is a larger lesson for every facet of your life, is it's okay to grow, and it's okay for your perception of things to change. Like, just like that. Like my parents weren't like jam band people. They thought the Grateful Dead was like a heavy metal band until like one day I put on like Working Man's Dead, and they're like, oh, what's this? And I'm like, this is Grateful Dead. They're like, not at all what I expected that to sound like. But I kind of like, to me, like when I originally started, jam bands were like, they play for like 20 minutes and it's all nonsense and it doesn't make any sense. And I kind of felt the same way with jazz whenever I first started out, because I couldn't wrap my head around it. I couldn't appreciate the value there. And that doesn't mean I was wrong. Just at that time, I didn't do it for me. Whereas, Blink-182, and like, I still listen to some of those old Green Day records, and I'm like, damn, these are incredible rock records. Like, yeah. Like, and in that moment, you can appreciate it, but it's okay to say like, this isn't everything anymore to me. It's just a thing that I enjoy. And now I also see the value in that. And I think like, you see us live, we do, incorporate a lot of cover music, just because like a 3-4 hour bar gig or something like that, they don't want to hear just Tim Vitullo songs. And I take a lot of pride that we play a lot of diverse music to try to like highlight that value, that, hey, here's a song that like you kind of think of us as maybe one way, but I think all the elements of songs we love are in this song, and maybe it's just packaged a little bit differently. Totally. Try to bring all those things together.
I think that is something that is really cool about artists such as yourself and the band that you've put together, is the fact that I think sometimes if you are in a band and you start a pop punk band or you start a heavy metal band, you're not going to get those 3-4 hour gigs. It's not going to happen. You know what I mean? You're kind of automatically pigeonholing yourself into playing, small clubs, small caps, 20-30 minute sets. And that's like the majority of your career is going to be doing that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like, I come from, I play in a death metal band. I've played in punk bands, so that's my world. So I know what it's like. And I'm always so envious of the people that are like, no, like, we have a gig at like a brewery or somewhere decent where like we play for 4 hours. We're going to get probably some free drinks and free, some free beer and stuff. And we're probably going to walk out of there with like a few $100, if not more, depending on where you're playing. And it's like, that's a really good deal for like a working artist. And I think like, it's so hard for people in like that punk scene to really thrive monetarily as they move forward. So I think not only musically did your parents maybe do you a favor they weren't aware of. I think, in the long run, they've maybe helped you take a more sustainable path. Not that there's anything wrong with being unsustainable, Punk rock is cool, but I think as we get older and we continue to do this, because music is our passion, the people that I tend to find that aren't bitter about this but in their 30s or older and still playing music are the people that have been able to find a way to monetize it and make it worthwhile for them to okay, sure, I'm not hanging out with the family this weekend because I got a gig, but I'm actually working. I am getting paid. This isn't just me
and honestly
around.
I would love to say that was the master plan, but totally fell into that by accident. And my attitude, and I'm really thankful and so incredibly lucky that my band has the same attitude, and everything's just a challenge. It's how can we solve that problem? We get these calls for sort of odd gigs sometimes, and it's okay, what can we do to solve that? And speaking to the current moment we're in, I mean, that's exactly the challenge is, I mean, every single curveball, and especially rock clubs basically saying, hey, you're not going to have a show in a rock club probably for the rest of the year, maybe longer.
Totally.
I don't know how long it's going to be, but to be able to adapt and to change, it really did. We kind of fell into that and noticed that, hey, here's a way to make this work that's not, and not to take anything away from that, but it's not playing a half dozen house shows in a market to try to build a groundswell that maybe one day we can go to a rock club and say hey, I think I can get 25 people here.
Yeah. Can
you put us on a bill with 4 other bands? And maybe they'll, over the course of the night, we'll have 75 people here at one time.
It's so hard to grow as an up and coming artist, and being able to have that opportunity to play in front of a crowd at a restaurant or again a brewery, whatever, where there's going to be a couple hundred people in and out of there throughout the night, and you're playing for 4 hours instead of oh, this is my 20-minute set that I get to play in front of the 15 people that might be here for this particular half hour. Cause whenever you're starting up, your friends will come out, but they get tired of it after a while, and understandably so. You know what I mean? I get it.
And especially if if you kind of are producing content on a typical kind of release cycle, if you're kind of putting out a new album every 12 to 18 months, or a new kind of collection of songs, it's really hard, especially in that kind of short time frame. That's kind of why we adopted the jam band ethos a little bit, because it makes every show unique.
Totally.
And you don't know what songs you're going to hear. You don't know if, hey, maybe last night we played this song for 12 minutes and tonight it's a 3-minute, get in, get out. And this other song that, we did that way, we kind of are flexible with it, and it keeps us excited about it, and interested in what we're doing. And then we hope the audience as well, that there's some variety so that you do get those repeat customers. I think that's really hard.
The other thing that's really cool too is once you have a certain catalog of music, you can kind of play to the room. You can feel okay, maybe there is more of a classic rock crowd here tonight, or maybe this is more of a jazzy or a jammy crowd. You can kind of just roll with it and just, do your 2, 3, 4 hour set and just kick ass.
Yeah. And we talk about we talk about the concept of building repertoire. I remember when I was applying to college, someone told me this, and I think it's sort of a good anecdote. They said you should apply to every Ivy League school, even if you have no intention of going to an Ivy League school. They said that's because to them, a lot of the shock factor is saying you got in, you had the opportunity to go. So they would say, that's all you need. You could say, oh, I didn't want to go for whatever reason. Oh, I didn't like the program, or I didn't, whatever.
Yeah.
But you can kind of drop that, and it's really impressive. And people keep that in their mind, oh, wow, you got accepted. Okay, you must be a pretty bright person or something. And that we talk about that whenever we learn cover songs. It's the power of whenever we're jamming to be able to make a medley on the fly. To hey, we all know a verse and a chorus of this popular song by this band. If you kind of just that, you feel that room out. Oh, okay. In the middle of this, instead of just me wanking on a guitar for 10 minutes, let's try to like medley into that. And we play a verse and a chorus of that popular song that someone requested, or an artist that someone wanted to hear. And you get that same thing, even if you hadn't like prepared a whole like 4.5-minute song by that artist that you play front to back and things like that. And those are all those kind of like little survival things that we picked up from touring that, you know, it's like, just keep these things in the back of your mind and be flexible and kind of heads up performance where you're ready for those audibles.
Dude, we played this show one time with my metal band. It was a bar gig in like a small suburb, not too, like a little outside of Pittsburgh. It wasn't in Pittsburgh, but not far. And it was a wild place. The room was real wild. The people there were cool. Everybody was into it. But it got this thing, you know, we played like a long set for us, which is like 45 minutes. You know, that's it's death metal. It's fast. You know, we're playing 4 hours worth of notes in 45 minutes. You know, the BPM's much faster. And after we were done, like people were like, "Oh, like that's it." And then people were trying to make requests, and I was just like, I felt so bad, but I was just like, we are not that. But like, I wish we were, you know, I wish we could just fucking play You Smoke on the Water right now, but it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. But I think it's great to see artists that are, you know, taking advantage of that, because definitely moving forward, that's going to be a huge thing. Huge.
Yeah. I think. And I think you're going to see, I mean, I don't have enough wherewithal of like the actual business of music to be able to predict and say something like very accurate that someone's going to listen to this podcast in like 6 months and be like, "Oh wow, that was a really smart thing he said." But to me, I see, you know, I mean, you scroll through social media and you see all the posts by venues we love working with, that aren't a brewery, aren't a restaurant, that don't have things like takeout service or dine-in service or something that they can use to sustain themselves while music is on the back burner. And I mean, I just, you know, the optimist in me wants to believe everyone's going to be okay. And, you know, we're all going to have like a big opening day celebration where everyone gets to open their doors again. But I think you're going to see some places close and opportunities are going to go away. So it's going to be on artists, you know, especially in that kind of DIY, you know, undiscovered tier to be really creative about, you know, finding opportunities.
Absolutely. I think that, you know, for the most part, I don't think a whole lot has changed for people operating on like a smaller scale. For touring artists, it's a whole another can of worms. I can't even begin to imagine what a nightmare that is. But, you know, I'm seeing all these big tours that are getting pushed back to next year. I think that's very optimistic. You know, I don't know, with the panic in the world right now, I can't imagine like seeing a band in a stadium a year from now. I hope I can. You know, I'm very optimistic when it comes to everything that's going on, but I'm only pessimistic in regards to people's reactions and getting back to things. I feel like even once it's a air quote, you know, safe to do so, I think a lot of people are going to be really paranoid about leaving and getting into doing things for a while. And I think businesses are going to be worried too, because, you know, liability is going to be a huge thing moving forward. I feel like nobody wants it to be their fault that somebody got sick, right? And I think that we're dealing with a lot of that right now. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's tough. Like we had a really nice touring summer. You know, we put out that new record and we were really excited to get on the road and pump it and try to, you know, hit some new markets, hit some old markets that we get a lot of work in, to say like, hey, you know, you've been asking for it. It's finally here. Here's new music.
Yeah. We should probably talk about that. You put out an album called Running Out of Time.
I did. Yes, we did. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah. So, you know, I started and kind of unceremoniously put out my first record in 2015. And that was kind of like what we look at as like day one. You know, we spent all this time making it. And then, you know, started getting booked like crazy, which is awesome. You know, the first couple of years of the band, the phone didn't really stop ringing. So finally had some time to put some songs together and took some time away from touring and made this record, which was nice. It's somebody just did a write-up about it, and it's always interesting. I think the best art and not to say that mine is the best art by any means, but, or like maybe the modicum of good art is that like, or good songs is that the artist and the listener kind of figures it out together. It's not just, like I'm not coming down from the mountain with 10 commandments to say like, this is how the world is, nor am I like leaving it so open-ended that there's nothing for the listener to sink their teeth into. Sure. But we just did a write-up and somebody did a write-up of it. They said it's a road record. And I think that's accurate. I mean, this thing was written while we were learning how to tour and figuring out how to tour and all the stress that comes with that. Everybody kind of thinks about Friday or Saturday night when like we're in your town and we're partying with you. But, there's all the things like time away from family and having to manage expenses and getting sick and, trying to balance all your other life and things with that. And I think a lot of it came from those experiences and seeing other people who, toured with what they went through and kind of having all those road stories kind of reloaded my bank. And that's where a lot of those songs came from.
Yeah. I think that, a lot of people that aren't musicians don't understand how much work goes into putting an album together. Yeah. It's a lot of work. So like, it could be like, you could be an artist that I hate, but if you get an album together, you will have like my infinite respect because it is just so hard to do it, and what is the main driving force for you now in terms of still continuing to want to go through the trouble of not only being in a band and playing shows, but trying to release a record and do all this press things and emailing idiots like me to talk to them on the internet about it? Like, what is that driving force that makes you still want to pursue this in just like this insanely complicated time that we're living in?
Yeah, absolutely. It is kind of funny. And to your point, my joke to people, if they say, "Oh, you're in a band," and I say, "Well, sort of. Really, I run a small business and get to play guitar sometimes." That's what I do. That's what a band is. I love great albums. Music for me has been a cause for celebration. It's been cathartic. It's been guiding. It's taught me about the world I live in and how different people feel and view the world we're a part of. It increasingly too with just all the noise that social media and everything kind of put into your daily peripheral. It's a well thought out statement on life and my favorite songwriters, talk about the human condition. I love getting everybody's different viewpoints on that. And that's my goal. Like at the end of the day, like whenever it's my time to go and be done, if I made a truly great record, I'd feel satisfied. Like I've played arenas to like tens of thousands of people for different things. I've played, intimate club shows. I've opened up for my heroes. And those are amazing experiences. And I value those so much, but like, that's the one thing at the end of the day. If I wrote a great record that somebody said like, man, like this just like kicked me in the ass. Yeah. And like moved me, that would be like, hey, I did what I came here to do.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, we're in a really interesting time now with releasing music because albums are, I don't know, like some people say albums don't matter anymore and we're living in a singles generation. And I don't know. I have a hard time keeping up with artists that I love when it's just like, here's another song. Here's a song. I'm always happy to hear like one or two new songs, but over time I'm like, man, like I just want to hear an album. I love like sitting down and hearing something front to back because I'm a very active listener. I'm not a passive listener when it comes to music. And I want to hear like, 30, 40 minutes of music, new music from somebody that I love or somebody that I've never heard of. I hate when like these days you'll find a lot of new artists and like, wow, this is a great song. But it's like, it's the only song they have on Spotify. And I'm like, damn it.
I need more. Yeah. It's like, there's two sides to that coin. Like every artist wants exactly that predicament they put you in where it's like, I'm actively wanting more. Yeah. So they hope you keep you hooked. But for me, much like you, like just long form media is my preferred way to experience things. Like I don't watch a lot of television, and I think that's probably part of it. Like I enjoy listening to an album because I think you can make a broader statement, or reading a novel, or watching a movie, or a longer form piece where you can touch on subtle nuances that, like, for me as someone who like looks at a single and says like, okay, if you want this to be popular, it's probably got to be like somewhere like 2.5 to 4.5 minutes, and has to be like digestible enough that like enough people are gonna latch onto it. You just don't have that same luxury to be able to explore things in such detail.
Yeah.
And that's not to say like I had somebody like send me like, hey, check out my new single, and it was like 8.5 minutes long, and like it was super cool. But it's like, I hope that person realizes like there's no way this is going to be popular.
Yeah.
Like a Rolling Stone is revered because it is such an outlier. Because it makes absolutely no sense that a 7-minute song is a number one hit.
Well, there was probably a radio edit of it at some point in time. I think it's really interesting as you get into songwriting and self-producing and doing all of these things. From my personal experience, I started appreciating stuff that I never appreciated when I was younger as a result of just learning more about how songwriting works. And I'm curious if you had a similar experience, if there was any artists that maybe you had listened to or maybe didn't listen to throughout the years, but maybe in more recent years have grown an appreciation for just out of respect for them being a good songwriter or a good composer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that was like really the big sea change for me was, growing up listening to classic rock. Like a staple of classic rock is just these virtuosic vocalists, like Robert Plant. Like, good God, as now someone who actively is trying to sing and perform songs, like like Led Zeppelin is my favorite band, but God, I would never want to cover any of their songs because like how do you do that justice?
Fair
And those were all the bands I grew up with, so it was always intimidating. But then like getting a little bit older and getting frustrated just kind of being a guitarist for hire, because like it is like everything you've heard about guitar players is 100% true. Like, we're ego freaking maniacs. Like
that's artists in general, dude.
Yeah. So and it's tough. Like I have like a white collar job where I watch kind of people do business in a corporate setting.
Okay.
And it definitely it got frustrating to me to watch people run a band, which again, like, it's a small business, and just make a lot of questionable decisions where it was like either done out of fear or insecurity or just lack of research or understanding. So I kind of had that growing in me, and then found people like, like John Prine, who I love, or, someone like Neil Young, or, like, unfortunately, like, turned out to be a terrible monster, but like Ryan Adams records were like really inspirational. It's like, these are regular guys, they have regular voices. And now my listening, that's like the number one thing for a song. Whereas it used to be like a cool guitar part or something would kind of hook me on a song. It's got to be a good song. And that's why, like, it'll be interesting. We call ourselves a jam band in name, but like the jam bands I love, are ones that jammed on great songs. So like, I love Jerry Garcia and what he and Robert Hunter, the songs they wrote. Whereas like Bob Weir songs, a lot of them I'm like, meh, take it or leave it.
Sure.
And it's like, hey, if it's a great song, and like we like the band Fish, there's a lot of Fish's music that does absolutely nothing for me, no matter how cool the jam is and how like far out they go with it, because the bass song is it to me is lacking, and I know there's a lot of people who are going to be like, oh, you're out of your mind, you're crazy, you're not a real jam head for saying that. But now my tastes definitely have changed to appreciate the song first and the production or the arrangement second.
I think it goes back to that comment that I made earlier about music being a conversation between you and the audience. And I think that, it's important sometimes if you're on stage, you want to communicate. The music is a universal language, but you can definitely speak that language in a way that not everybody's going to understand universally. Like and I think sometimes with jam bands, they can get very much in that, like, we're not, I don't know. I feel like if you're a band and you're playing, you kind of have a job to entertain the crowd, right? Like that's what you're there for. You're the entertainment. And I think that sometimes people want to see a little bit of your selfishness on stage, but it can be a little bit much. And I think that that's what rubs me the wrong way when it comes to a lot of maybe that jam band stuff, or even like you'll see it sometimes with even in the death metal world. There are people that write music that is just incredibly selfish. And it's just like, this is nothing but just like technical jambalaya, and it doesn't taste good.
Well, this is to like recall back to your point. This is like a thing that I struggle with as a singer-songwriter is there's also that balance of like how you present what you're doing. And I think a lot of like Americana roots singer-songwriter music does have that really conversational, really honest ethos to it. That's really hard to do at like a 500 cap room or, in a stadium or something like that. Like when you go to see the Rolling Stones at Heinz Field, or like Kenny Chesney or U2 or whoever, you want to see fireworks, you want to see pyrotechnics, you want to see like all this crazy glitzy stuff. Like you want to see Bono and Mick Jagger be larger than life and like running around without their shirt on and yelling and screaming and being this like, this character, and then at the same time, it's like, okay, do I really want, like, whenever then he sings me like Wild Horses, like how do you change that to make it feel like the Rolling Stones are sitting like in front of you and he's singing Wild Horses to you, and it has that sincerity and that thing after we just went through like this giant like bravado of like, sex, drugs, and rock and roll and fireworks and explosions, and it's this like, I'm so freaking cool. Like how do you do that? And we struggle with that. And I think it's and social media too is, I think, an extension. How do you kind of put your art together? Because like to me now in the age of like Taylor Swift, like you can't pull the artist and the artwork away anymore. Like the public has grown so enamored with this idea of like everything is somewhat autobiographical, and how does this relate to the artist and who's telling me this, as opposed to like, like these faceless kind of embodied songwriters, who just like, these are great songs. We don't have the internet to know what they look like and what they do in their personal lives. I think it's a really difficult line to draw, I think. Yeah,
I think that environment, especially for upcoming artists, is such a big deal. And I've had this conversation before with people like, okay, if you want to be the next Blink-182, right? Like you want to start a pop punk band. It's pretty easy to like find that community. You play, little fire halls, little clubs, and it's accessible, right? But like what happens if for some reason you want to be the next like Nickelback or like a big stadium rock band, right? Like that band can't play a small club, like, because you kind of need this larger than life loud presentation with like professional audio and lights in order to like really sell a stadium rock experience. So it's like you're like setting the bar so much higher for yourself just coming in, because otherwise it looks cheap. Whereas like if you're a punk band, the whole aesthetic is to look cheap, and if you're playing a place that's too nice, it doesn't make sense. And then like it ties into the social media too, because sometimes like say you're somebody that, makes music that caters to a lot of people that aren't interested in being on Instagram. How do you promote your music on Instagram? It's weird.
Yeah. That's one big thing we struggle with too is, the removing the gatekeepers is great, because it allows like someone like me or you to make a record and put it out in the world, and it's just as easily available as Beyonce's record or the Rolling Stones or whoever. Someone has to make the same amount of clicks on a computer or a phone to listen to your record as the biggest stars in the world. But with that comes all that segmenting of, there's just so much noise and so many places to get music. It's not like you just listen to AM radio and they play whatever the gatekeepers decided will be popular and will sell. And that's how you find out about music. So that's a really big struggle. And to call back to your earlier point, it's imperative for local bands to kind of escape that perception of being a local band. Like, that's a really hard thing to do. I know a lot of people are like, for us, like, oh, you're a local band, and then it ends there. So like, they're not willing to, kind of see the vision or maybe pay the higher ticket price or to help you kind of self-promote or something. Cause it's like, oh, you're just a local band. And how do you kind of do that perception? I mean, that's one of the big reasons we tour is like right off the bat, when you say like, yeah, we play in over a dozen states every year. People are like, oh, okay. You're like a touring band. You're like a real band, not a local band. And it's like, not really. We're the same guys. We still play the same songs and we have the same show and play the same kinds of venues. But now, like, our perception has kind of allowed you to maybe think beyond just we're guys in your backyard.
The interesting thing with that mentality, just when it comes to the average person, not the musician, but we'll say like the fan or an average crowd member, it always is interesting to me that, okay, local music or local art has no value, but local sports and local food has value. I think that there's a weird correlation between like the local restaurant industry and the local music scene. I mean, in a lot of ways, a lot of bands and performers such as yourself, thrive off of that industry, where like you may be playing a place where, you have 200 people in there that are willing to pay $8 for glasses of beer, but like $8 for your CDs asking too much.
Yeah.
It's a really strange concept. But I mean, there are people that are willing to definitely, participate and support local arts. But as a whole, I feel like the same mentality. It's like, why would you go to a local restaurant and spend $40 on, lasagna when you could go to the Olive Garden and spend 10? Oh, because, this is locally prepared and it's something special and it's in my neighborhood and I'm supporting, the neighborhood. It's like, well, why not do that with art too?
Yeah, no, that's a great analogy. And like the one thing that we always, or like I think about as a songwriter, like to me, like we talked about like selfish songs or selfish records, like to me as an unknown artist, like a really like mopey, like breakup record, it's like a luxury you get once people have like gotten into you. And that's purely because of that. Like, especially as like an opening band or like a band on a bill on like a Friday or Saturday night, like people want to get really charged up unless it's like made very clear, like this is going to be like for people who want like really intense, emotional singer-songwriter music. You have to kind of keep that accessibility element to kind of bring them in and try to get them involved in what you're doing. And just the reality of like, unless you are a diehard music fan, like for instance, I love sports. I would call myself a sports fan, but like, I won't watch a game unless there's a team that I really am invested in.
Sure.
And I think the same, for a lot of people, there are people who like music, but aren't maybe as open to like reaching out to like find something new, where it's like, oh, my favorite bands come around a couple times every year. And that's kind of like where I'm comfortable with music. I think it's really important for local artists to try to find those ways to bring people in to say, hey, here's some of what you like, mixed in, and then here's a taste of what we like. And then you hope that you become part of that.
It goes back to the restaurant thing. You know what I mean? Like, local restaurants are able to get people coming back because they have a presentation that's nice. They have a menu that has a lot of variety, a little something for everybody, right? Like it could be a specialized restaurant. Like you could be a specialized band. You could be a heavy metal band. But if your style of music that you play is able to offer something for people that like all different facets of heavy metal music or Americana or classic rock, whatever, like you're going to get people coming back to see you play more and more. And I think that going into the point that you had made before about bands, labeling themselves like, oh, we're a local band. I totally get where you're coming from with that. And I think that the biggest problem that a lot of bands have is not necessarily calling themselves local bands, but committing to too many things locally that they're not able to actually go do anything. It's like, okay, well, we're a local band and we've taken a show on every other weekend in Pittsburgh for the next 2.5 months. Okay, that's cool. You have gigs, but now you can't do anything because you've made these commitments and you're agreeing to sell 25 tickets for this show and another 15 for this one. It's like, you're never going to get out of this city. It's like, sure, you're playing gigs, but you might be better off not doing that and focusing on getting stuff out of town. But I know that it can be frightening for a lot of people. And there are just artists too that just genuinely don't want to go on the road, especially some bands that are maybe a little older and over it. And they just kind of want to, play gigs to play gigs. But that also bugs me too, because it's like, there's a lot of hungry talent in the city. And it always annoys me when you'll see a band on a bill that you could tell that they show up a little late, they leave a little early, they don't have any merchandise for sale, they're not super personable, and it's like, why are you here? Why would you load up your cars, load up all your fucking Kia Souls and Nissans and all your crappy cars that you have with all of your gear and drive it across town to do something that you barely want to do? If you're going to play a show, I don't care if it's 10 minutes from your house. You should be there, on time, be professional, have a presence, even if you just have some stickers. What's the point of playing the show if you're not going to try to grow and expand? Even if you just get one new fan that week, that's worth it. It's better than just being a grump. And that's something that I've seen a lot of bands do. And I'm hoping that this quarantine stuff and this COVID crap, I'm hoping that it kind of pushes some of those fair weather bands out. I hope that they're done. And when we get back, there's bands that are really hungry and bands that are that deserve the stage time, honestly, that are working hard. I hope that they're the bands that get the playlist. And I'm hoping that promoters are a little bit more, I don't know, I just hope they pay more attention to the bands that are playing and who they're asking to play shows, and just really, give these people that have been working hard and just actually have something to offer people, So that's another problem too when it comes to local shows, is sometimes you have promoters that don't really curate the show. They're just happy to have whoever on the show. Anybody that can play, anybody that can maybe sell the tickets, or anybody that can fit the bill. We just have time slots. We don't care who plays this. And then, okay, well, you get one or two bands on the bill taking up an hour of time that could care less about being there, don't engage with the crowd. The crowd's not into it. And now the crowd has a fair weather response to what local music is, because the majority of those people aren't local music followers. They're just, they're there to have some drinks or some food, or just to see their other friend's band. And if, I don't know, it's just there's always an opportunity if you're on a stage to make new fans. And even if you feel you're out of your element, or for some reason you feel you're playing a stage that's oh, we shouldn't be playing here, we're too cool for this. Whatever dumb thought is in your head, it's well, you're here now. And there are people in this room, so you should probably try to make a good impression. Otherwise, you're really wasting your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we do, we have, an annual, meeting for the business to go over and this is I'm a huge baseball fan, and by extension, I'm a huge statistics fan. So I take all these stats. Yeah, it's my inner nerd coming out. I take all these stats on all the opportunities we get, all the opportunities I even send away for, to just try to put some graphs together and understand what did we actually do this year? What worked for us, and what do we need to improve on? And things like that. It's easy. There are a couple, clubs that we kind of joke about that we play where, the pay is really good. So that's a reason to go do it, and we keep doing it for that. But then we get frustrated about, why aren't we seeing repeat customers? Why aren't why aren't like our social media analytics or like our streaming analytics, like in those markets, why aren't we seeing things go up, after we're there and seemingly have good responses, and that's always the challenge, is to keep trying to be creative and to not kind of rest on your laurels. Like I always remind the band whenever we go into a place, even if we've been there before, I say, just remember, we're nobody and we're entitled to nothing.
Absolutely.
Like they could just as easily have another band here instead of us.
It is, it's so difficult, but humbling to just remember, like, dude, like there are so many people in the world. There are so many bands. And I just try to think about like how I personally engage with music. Like Iron Maiden is probably my favorite band of all time. I've loved them since I was a kid. I probably haven't listened to an Iron Maiden album in like a couple years, easily. Mm-hmm. But like, I know those songs so well that like I could think about, Aces High or 2 Minutes to Midnight in my head right now. And I could play the whole goddamn song and air guitar, the whole everything without even needing to listen to it, just because it's like a part of my DNA at this point.
Yeah.
So like sometimes just because, people aren't necessarily engaging with your stuff on like a daily or a weekly basis, it doesn't mean that like you aren't a part of their a part of their memory and a part of something that they really appreciate. And the other thing too, going back to food again, you know what I mean? It's like, I could eat the best damn plate of food that I've had in months, but once I'm full, and then I'm moving on to the next thing. You know what I mean? I'm not just like thinking about that food all day or just like constantly going back to eat more. It's like, no, I ate it. I'm full. Now I got other stuff to do. Especially when like you're making music that caters to like an older demographic. Like if you're making music that is like geared towards teenagers that have nothing else better to do but listen to music 24/7, then sure, maybe you can really get a little bit more bent because like, people aren't streaming your stuff like crazy. But like, that's like, that's a different thing. If your demographic is people that are your age or maybe a little younger or older that, are doing projects around the house or working or taking care of family stuff, it's like, they're not going to be listening to your music all the time.
No, it's tough. And that's what it's like. It's kind of it's a double-edged sword in that we get such powerful tools as independent artists now, but promoters also get those same tools to quantify us and qualify us. And that's hard, whenever like somebody looks at your Instagram and like, before they even listen to like a note you've played, they look at how many followers do you have? How many streams did you get on Spotify this month? How many streams has your top track got?
Sure.
Things like that, where like, again, like you're looking at such a subjective thing. Like, do I like this band? Do I think they fit the vibe of my club? And are they going to be a good match on this bill? Do I think people in this area respond to that kind of music really well? And therefore I think this is a good partnership. Like before any of that, like has crossed your mind, it's just like, less than 1,000 followers, next.
Sure.
And they flip up and it's like, man, like what a difficult thing, but you're 100% right. And I think about how I listen to music. I mean, I'm you want people to do this, but at the same time, I'm like you, I've got stuff to do. I listen to a podcast maybe, or I listen to sports talk sometimes if I want, to hear that content. It's just like, I can't be a music sponge 24/7.
No.
Especially when it's like such a big part of your life, sometimes it's nice to walk away and come at it with a fresh set of hands and ears.
Dude, if I spend if I spend like, 6-7 hours behind me, whoa, I hit this mic. If I spend 6-7 hours behind me, working on mixes and things like that, as soon as I'm done, the last thing I want to do is like listen to music. Yeah. I feel like it's like an unfortunate part of like what I do, it's kind of like, whenever you, again, with the restaurant thing, you know what I mean? Like, why are there so many like skinny chefs? I don't know. Like everybody that I know that works in a kitchen is like bone thing. And it's like, just like, I don't know. We just like smoke cigarettes. We're tired of eating food. It's just like, you get sick of it. And it's like, and if they are eating, it could be like this really nice restaurant, but they're like back there with like Jimmy John sandwiches and stuff, just cause like they just like, if we are going to eat, we just want like some junk, you know, you just kind of like get
something that's new.
You just get exhausted. I think it's like an unfortunate side effect of like anything that you do, whatever your job is or whatever you spend your time doing. Whenever you have an opportunity to not be around it, you take it. But, with that being said, I still listen to a lot of music and I still love music to death. But it's, again, there's only so much I could take in every day. And the amount of new content that gets put out on a daily basis versus what I can intake is
staggering.
Yeah. There's no way I can keep up. So I just need to make sure that I'm happy and I don't know, I'm making music. I just try to like every day, as long as I did something like, I don't know, like, okay, I worked on a couple mixes and I got some stuff done. Like I mixed some guitars and bass in a track that wasn't mixed yesterday. Cool. Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah. I hope I do some more. But you know what? Yesterday, those weren't mixed. And yesterday, this podcast wasn't recorded. So I'm doing stuff. I'm not spending every hour of my day just like stressing, trying to be productive. Just get some stuff done. Make sure you take care of the things you need to do a little bit of what you need to do, a little bit of what you want to do, and a little bit of nothing. That's like the tripod. Yeah.
Well, like you talked about that, like that's been the best part about this, like trying to be the optimist about the situation we're in and having been stuck in our houses and continue to be, coming back to like how, touring it's grueling, and especially like we were trying to do it, not that I think we won't go back to that whenever we're able to, but it was really refreshing to kind of like get a hard stop and just, kind of take a survey of the surrounding. And it was like, man, we would have done this again for another year. And like in that time, like I wrote our next record, once we're ready to kind of go back into the studio after this cycle is over and we feel like we've kind of milked it for what it's worth. I would have never had that time, nor would I have had the energy, even if I did have the time, because I would have spent all my time, trip planning and catching up on chores that I missed while I was on the road touring, and catching up on sleep and trying to figure out, where we're going to be next weekend and doing all the accounting and everything else that's involved with that. Like what a great thing to kind of, mix it up. Like whenever you go to the gym, they talk about how you got to kind of mix up all the different muscle groups you work on, not just doing the same thing day after day after day for your body. And I kind of felt like that was a lesson I needed to learn. And coronavirus, thankfully taught me that, maybe we should, instead of just like 12 months a year, just like tour like crazy, take some time to work on new music, take some time to maybe try, doing some live streaming or trying to connect with people in different ways, and just to keep us fresh, keep us from getting burnt out. I know it's kind of like a joke, but like, touring season for us kind of ends right around like Halloween, and it's been kind of getting later and later every year, closer to Thanksgiving. By the end of it, you're like a well-polished machine. You've just played like, a whole bunch of shows all year long. The songs like the back of your hand. But maybe it'd be good to refresh a little bit, so there's not that burnout period, so that we don't end up like that band you described where they're there and like we're just so like on autopilot. It doesn't seem like we're really being genuine with what we're doing.
That's the funny thing too, that I think a lot of people don't take the time to realize that, like, when you're not operating on this big level, like, you're not, most like touring bands, like the big ones, you know what I mean? They do like, like a couple months every couple years.
Yeah.
But people that are lower, it's like, oh, we're going out of town every other weekend for 6 years straight trying to make this work. And it's like, even the most successful artists, they actually have time to take breaks and spend time with families, and they do things in different chunks because that's just how it's structured out. And it's like, I understand that, like, we're not operating on the same touring schedule. We don't have the same luxuries, but like, you have to understand, I think, as an independent artist, like, this happened with me and our band because it was like, this is the first break that we've taken since we started 4 years ago, really. You know what I mean? Like, we're not on some nonstop touring schedule, but it's like every week rehearsal, every week probably a show, or we're shooting a video, or it's constantly. But now it's like nothing. And it's like, okay, wow, like, this is nuts. And honestly, like, looking at like some of the gigs that we lost and things like that, I would say a large majority of them, I was like, I really don't care that we're not playing this show.
Yeah, I love every chance to play, but it has, like, that's the other thing. Like, as we kind of look at the schedule, I have to make all those decisions about, is going out, even if that venue says, hey, we're still going to have you this summer, is it really worth it? And, it's kind of a different kind of risk analysis. And these are the things that, like, my heart goes out to any small business trying to operate right now, because that's such a hard decision. And there's so, comparatively to the information you need to make that decision, there's so little available. It's really hard, but it kind of makes you think about what did we do there last time? How many times have we been there? Like, what's the crowd like? What's involved to get there? What do we think? And to be really critical about it. And, I'm always big on, to our group, preaching work smart, not hard.
Totally.
You should still work hard, but there were times, and like trying to make this record, like we it was kind of a joke a little bit calling it running out of time, because it really was. I mean, we were like so far into this thing and still hadn't put out new music. You could tell people were like, dude, I'm tired of hearing the CD. You need new music. It's time. We want it. We're ready.
Mm-hmm.
But the amount of pressure to kind of balance that kind of touring schedule, to have to make this album twice because we botched the first one, to keep up with our families and our jobs and our lives. And then, like, that's the other, like, kicker that people don't really think about is, like, while you're still playing the dates you're playing, is like a band like us, like, I'm booking out the next year already. So you're booking, you're touring, you're recording, you're writing, you're rehearsing, you're trying to do all this at once. And I mean, it was grueling. It was absolutely grueling. And again, I'm hopeful that, we can kind of learn from the break that, hey, that's maybe not a normal way to operate.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's weird. It's like, I think that there's going to be definitely a reevaluation of my priorities as we move forward. The things that I decide to make time for and the things that I just decide to cut out in my life. There needs to be some things, because, like, I do a lot. I work like crazy on a bunch of different projects, and it's always like, but it involves a ton of planning and a lot of, like, most of the time people were like, how did you do so much this week? Like, you put out this song and there's these 2 videos and all this. I'm like, all that stuff we did that like last month, or like, I recorded that song 3 months ago and it took me, fucking 7 weeks to mix it, because like I only had like 45 minutes like every other day to work on it. So like once you get the ball rolling, like talking about like, oh, like you're recording and then you got tour dates and all those things, it could seem like kind of crazy and like to the outsider looking in, but for you it's like, no, like we wrote these songs maybe 2.5 years ago and we're just getting released now, because it just takes fucking forever to make these things happen. And I'm curious about, you had mentioned that you recorded this album twice, and you said you botched the first one. Like, what would be like just like the quick summary on like why that happened? Like what went wrong?
We were in a really good position going into recording, having toured like crazy and had a lot of nice opportunities that paid us pretty well to do it. So, the band fund was ready to support it. So we went for a pretty posh studio and a really respected producer to do it. And honestly, I think we got really intimidated by it, to be honest. Like, I know me personally, and the past jobs I worked for, both like as an artist and as a session guitarist, I'll do that from time to time. It's had a really vocal and strong producer on board, and it's like, hey, you're the producer, like you're doing the thing. Yeah. Like, tell me what, you have feedback, I respect your feedback. Like, that person hired you or I hired you to be the producer. And I think I got really intimidated by it. And maybe just was unconfident about decisions I made personally about the process. Definitely not the studio's fault. Definitely not the producer's fault. Just sometimes you put a team together and it's not the right team for that project. Sure. I think that was it. Whereas, kind of the other reason that was kind of interesting too is, through that process, we were losing our keyboard player at the time. And, I think it was tough, for everyone to be really confident about what we were doing, with the immediate future being so uncertain. Making this record that featured a lot of keyboards and pianos, and that person's walking out the door. I think it was really hard to feel good about what we did there as a result of that. So kind of going for it on the redo, there are no keyboards on it. It's just guitar, bass, and drums. And we put a crap ton of guitars on it, which was awesome. I got to play Guitar Hero in the studio, and I had a ball. And chose to self-produce the kind of redo. And, I think it paid off. I mean, we're truly a DIY setup. And so far it's led us in the right direction. I've definitely made a ton of mistakes along the way, and I learned from mistakes. So that's good and bad. But I think we kind of went into it thinking we were going to have a certain experience, and the reality of that, was very different from what it was. And I think it caught us off guard as to like, oh, this is what this way of working is like, and just wasn't how I was really comfortable doing it. And saw it through to the end, but at the end of the day, it was just like, I think we kind of missed it for a myriad of reasons.
I've had friends who have done similar things where they go out of state, they work with, somebody that is well known in their respected genre, and it just doesn't click. It's a crazy combination of things. I think that a lot of times, just because, like, say you're a band that sounds like Weezer, just because you go into the studio with somebody that worked on a Weezer album doesn't mean that your album's going to sound like Weezer. I feel like, when it comes to production, like, it's like you're almost like, you need to find somebody that can be that fourth, fifth, sixth member of the band. Somebody that actually is interested in taking the project further. And this isn't just like a job. You know what I mean? This isn't like, and sometimes when you're going into those situations and like you're hiring a producer to work with you, it just doesn't click. And
and it's the same with band members too. I mean, we've had, it hasn't been the same cast of characters in Tim Vitullo Band, throughout our run. And that, that's to be expected with this kind of project, certainly. I wouldn't call it a revolving door, but, some work out better than others. And that's the reality of it. And those people that didn't work out, they're amazing players. They, all of them, every last one of them is wicked talented, but for one reason or another, it's just like, hey, that particular team either had different goals, had different ways of being motivated that weren't part of our kind of day to day. It just doesn't work. And there's no hard feelings about that. There's no like, because it didn't work, you're bad or anything. It's just, it's important to have the right people, not necessarily the best people.
Yeah, it's hard, I think, sometimes whenever you have this is you, your songs, your band, and while I'm sure the people that you have playing with you contribute ideas to the songs and in the studio and things like that, it's still your thing. And in my personal experience with doing solo music and having a band as well, you always have band members that are in other projects and so sometimes it's just like it's like they enjoy playing in the band, but you're not necessarily a priority. So it can be kind of difficult sometimes, like say you have a drummer that's in two other bands and it's just like, okay, well now we can't do these gigs because your actual band has a gig that day. Or like sometimes like people just kind of get burnt out on just like playing like, oh, like this song is written and I just need you to kind of play it live. Yeah. Not everybody wants to do that. So, and I totally get it.
Yeah, it's such an important thing. Again, like something I learned from just being a sideman for years and years. I mean, like number one is clear communication. And like for me, anytime we're going to bring someone into the band, I sit down with them or have a phone call with them and kind of go through like, this is how we do business. Like, this is how you should expect business to run. If you have a problem with any of that, let me know now. We can talk about it. But this is how it's going to go. and there are places we can flex and try to accommodate you if you have an issue, and also that's like the big thing I fight is as an original project, there's not a lot of money in that. Some of the guys, like whenever we have an off weekend, may pick up like a cover band gig, for like a fill in, like, hey, come play like 30 like Leonard Skinner and Guns N' Roses songs at this bar or whatever.
And they're probably getting paid.
Yeah, and they walk out with like a fat stack of cash.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm never giving them that fat stack of cash, or not right now. I'm not. And so that's really hard, like, to keep people's motivation, especially like people who are doing this, like this is their all. It's really hard. So like for me as an original artist, you have to give people ownership.
Yeah.
If you're not going to give them money, you have to give them ownership in the project. And that's why I'm always like, the demos I send to the band are just me and an acoustic guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, hey, you're the band. Like, I trust you guys to be the band because like, it's a foolish thing for me to say like, hey, like Brent McConnell, our drummer, hey Brent, I want you to play like John Bonham on this record. Like it's always going to sound like an imitation of John Bonham when,
sure.
His best is going to be playing as Brent McConnell or David Fix, our bassist. Hey, I want you to play like Pino Palladino on this record. Again, it's going to be like a cheap imitation. You're always going to get the best if you allow people to be themselves. And again, we talk about like hiring the right people.
Yeah.
Making sure you have people who understand the vision because you've hopefully communicated it to them clearly and agree with the vision and think that they can add to the vision. Not hiring the guy like the classic. This was always in cover bands where like you hire a guy who knows how to play in like a classic rock band, but he really just likes like Pearl Jam and Nirvana,
sure.
and wants to play like grunge music. And it's like, I love those bands, but that's not what this band is.
Sure.
Or like the guy who, like the guitarist who like is a Stevie Ray Vaughan disciple playing in a hard rock band and everything turns into like Texas blues. It's like, hey, I appreciate that that's your passion and that's how you express yourself, but that's not what this band is. And it's, it's tough to force people to kind of, unless there's a natural curiosity. Like I try to take gigs doing the slide guitar stuff now because I have a really natural curiosity to get better at that and to learn that and develop that language. But like if you asked me to like, like go play bass in a band, yeah, could I do it? But am I going to enjoy it? No.
Totally. Totally.
So it's really important. And that's kind of how I try to solve that. And so far, hopefully it's worked for me.
It seems like everything's working for you pretty all right. Again, running out of time. It's available now. You just released it, a couple weeks ago, right? End of June?
Yeah, end of June. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We appreciate everybody who's streamed it. And if you want, like we have a bunch of physical merch, like we have these cool stickers.
Wow.
And t-shirts and everything. You can check it out on our website too. Like while we're not touring, that's always a huge help for us.
Why don't you tell people about the website? Where can people find you guys?
Yeah, so it's timvitullo.com. And I'm sure if they're like streaming this, they can figure out how to spell that. Vitullo. Official TVB on Instagram and Facebook. Official TV Band on Twitter. You can check us out there. And Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, Amazon Music, all that good stuff. Our YouTube as well has some fun things on there, some live performances from over the years. But head to the website. We have a merch page, the tour page, which I feel like that's been like bad news city recently. But,
yeah, totally.
But you can see all the places we're supposed to be in. Stay posted.
You have some great looking merch. All this stuff looks awesome.
I have to give a shout out. The guy's name is Paul Haggerty. Haggerty.
Yeah.
He helped us do all our rebrand stuff and did all those logos. And man, he's a like rock star graphic designer. So if you're a band and do it, and his passion is like retro album covers.
Yeah.
And then so we had like so much simpatico about all these great designs and artists we loved. If you're a band, definitely hit him up.
Yeah, this stuff is great. I'm a bit of a graphic design nerd, and that's my part of my day job is that I do that sort of stuff, and I really love all of the all of the fonts and like the color choices and the placement on it. It's just like really, really cool and clean. And like when I like listen to your band, like your visual representation is like matched really well. Like, you know, like
Thanks.
this art, you know, sound looks like how your band sounds. And I think that that's a difficult thing to do, but yeah, knocked it out of the park. So shout outs to that artist. That's awesome. That is super
Paul
cool.
Haggerty. Give him a call.
Yeah, Paul Haggerty, shout outs. And, you know, with all that being said, probably going to wrap this up and then do an outro, and then that'll be it. I'll let you go about your Sunday, my friend. Cool?
Cool, man. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for taking the time. It was good to meet you. And that is all, folks. One more time, Tim Vitullo, thanks for being here. I'll be back again in a couple days with another episode. Same time, same place, same channel. You know the drill. My name is Sykes. Start the beat 2020. Woo, woo. Thanks for listening. And we are done. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, man. This is a blast.
Dude, you got it. This will be up in a couple weeks. I'll email you. I'll let you know when it's going up. All right. Cool. And